Speciation is the process by which new biological species arise. It occurs when populations of a species become reproductively isolated and divergent due to evolutionary pressures such as natural selection, genetic drift, or sexual selection. Over time, these isolated populations accumulate genetic differences, leading to reproductive isolation, the inability to interbreed and produce viable, fertile offspring, resulting in the formation of distinct species. There are several mechanisms of speciation, the primary ones being allopatric, sympatric, parapatric, and parapatric speciation. 2. Types of speciation. A. Allopatric speciation. Allopatric speciation occurs when a population is geographically isolated into two or more subpopulations due to physical barriers such as rivers, mountains, or oceans. These subpopulations no longer interbreed and evolve independently over time. Key mechanisms involve geographic isolation, a physical barrier divides a population. Genetic divergence. Over time, due to mutation, genetic drift, and different selective pressures, the isolated populations accumulate genetic differences. Reproductive isolation. Eventually, these genetic differences lead to reproductive isolation, either through changes in behavior, morphology, or timing of reproduction. Example. Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands show variation due to geographic isolation. Some finches on different islands evolved into separate species with different beak sizes and feeding strategies. B. Sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation occurs when new species arise within the same geographic area. It often happens due to ecological or behavioral barriers that prevent interbreeding, despite the absence of a geographic barrier. Key mechanisms involve ecological niches. Populations exploit different resources or habitats within the same environment, leading to reproductive isolation. Behavioral isolation. Differences in mating behavior or mating preferences can result in assortative mating, where individuals prefer mates with similar traits, reducing interbreeding between subpopulations. Polyploidy. This is an increase in chromosome number that can lead to speciation. It is common in plants and can result in a reproductive barrier between polyploid individuals and their parental species. Example. Cichlid fishes in African lakes have diversified into many species, even though they live in the same environment. Different species evolved by adapting to various niches, such as changes in diet or depth of water they inhabit. See parapatric speciation. Parapatric speciation occurs when populations are adjacent to each other but not completely isolated. There is some gene flow between them, but distinct selective pressures in different areas lead to gradual divergence. Key mechanisms involve spatial variation and selection. Different habitats or environments result in differing selection pressures, creating genetic divergence along an environmental gradient. Limited gene flow. While populations may still interbreed, limited gene flow in regions of overlap fosters differentiation. Example. Blue tits in Europe that reside at different altitudes might face varying selective pressures such as food availability, temperature, and predation, leading to different evolutionary outcomes. D. Parapatric speciation. Parapatric speciation is similar to allopatric speciation but occurs when a small population becomes isolated at the edge of a larger population. This small population is more prone to genetic drift and undergoes faster divergence than the larger population. Key mechanisms involve founder effect. A small group of individuals starts a new population, and genetic drift accelerates divergence from the main population. Selective pressure. As a small group experiences different environmental factors, rapid genetic changes lead to speciation. Example. The North American gray wolf and its isolated populations in remote islands or small regions, such as the Isle Royale wolves, have diverged due to genetic drift and selective pressures. 3. Reproductive isolation. Key to speciation. Reproductive isolation is essential for the formation of new species. It prevents gene flow between populations and allows them to evolve independently. Reproductive isolation mechanisms include prezygotic barriers. These prevent fertilization and can be classified into different categories. Temporal isolation. Differences in breeding seasons or time of day. Behavioral isolation. Differences in courtship or mating behaviors. Mechanical isolation. Incompatibility in reproductive organs. Gametic isolation. Incompatibility at the molecular level in egg and sperm interactions. Postzygotic barriers. These act after fertilization and include hybrid inviability. Hybrids do not survive to reproductive age. Hybrid sterility. Hybrids, such as mules, offspring of horses and donkeys, are sterile and cannot reproduce. 4. Molecular evidence for speciation. Advancements in genetics have provided strong molecular evidence for the mechanisms of speciation. The use of DNA sequencing, genomic comparisons, and phylogenetic trees allows scientists to trace evolutionary relationships and understand how speciation has occurred on a molecular level. Genetic divergence. The accumulation of genetic differences between populations provides clear evidence of speciation events. For example, differences in mitochondrial DNA or nuclear genes can reveal how distinct a population has become from its ancestor. 5. Previous years gave questions on speciation. Q1 Gate Ecology and Evolution 2019. What is the primary mechanism through which allopatric speciation occurs? A. Polyploidy. B. Behavioral isolation. C. Geographic isolation. D. Natural selection. Answer. C. Geographic isolation. Explanation. Allopatric speciation requires the physical separation of populations by geographic barriers, which prevents gene flow between them and leads to independent evolutionary paths. Q2 Gate Ecology and Evolution 2021. Which of the following is an example of sympatric speciation? A population of butterflies is separated by a mountain range and forms two different species. B. A small group of birds colonizes a new island and becomes a new species. C. Two different species of cichlids arise in a single lake due to differences in mating behavior. D. A species of bird undergoes major genetic changes due to a reduction in population size. Answer. C. Two different species of cichlids arise in a single lake due to differences in mating behavior. Explanation. In sympatric speciation, species diverge within the same geographic area due to ecological or behavioral differences, such as in the mating preferences of different cichlid species in a lake. Q3 Gate Ecology and Evolution 2020. Which of the following scenarios is most likely to result in parapatric speciation? A. A large population is geographically isolated by a mountain. B. A small population becomes isolated in a small habitat on the periphery of a larger population. C. A population is split into two by the emergence of a river. D. Different species evolve in a large interconnected ecosystem. Answer. B. A small population becomes isolated in a small habitat on the periphery of a larger population. Explanation. Parapatric speciation occurs when small populations at the edge of a larger population become isolated, often leading to rapid divergence due to genetic drift and selective pressures in the new environment. 6. Conclusion. Speciation is the cornerstone of evolutionary biology, driving the vast biodiversity seen on Earth today. The mechanisms of allopatric, sympatric, parapatric, and parapatric speciation, supported by reproductive isolation, are essential for understanding how new species evolve. Additionally, molecular evidence in the study of genetic divergence continue to illuminate the processes of speciation on a genetic level. Would you like to proceed with the next topic? Smile. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Molecular Evolution and Phylogenetics 1. Detailed lecture. Molecular evolution is the study of genetic changes at the molecular level that lead to the development of new phenotypes and, ultimately, new species. This field bridges the gap between evolutionary biology and genetics by examining how DNA, RNA, and proteins evolve over time. Phylogenetics, the study of evolutionary relationships among species, is a crucial tool in molecular evolution, allowing scientists to construct phylogenetic trees that depict the evolutionary history of life. Molecular evolution can be studied through changes in genetic sequences, DNA, RNA, protein sequences, and more recently, through the examination of genomes in entirety. Central processes in molecular evolution include mutations, genetic drift, natural selection, and horizontal gene transfer. Phylogenetics utilizes molecular data to understand relationships between species, tracing lineages back to common ancestors, thus elucidating evolutionary processes and patterns. 2. Evolution at the molecular level. A. Genetic mutations. Genetic mutations are the ultimate source of genetic variation. These mutations can arise through various mechanisms such as DNA replication errors, spontaneous chemical alterations in nucleotides, or environmental exposure, e.g., radiation. There are several types of mutations. Point mutations, changes in a single nucleotide base. Insertions, deletions, frame shift mutations. Duplication mutations, copying of sections of chromosomes. Chromosomal rearrangements, e.g., translocations. These changes, though sometimes neutral or harmful, may lead to beneficial traits that can be selected for in a population. When these mutations occur in reproductive cells, they are inherited, and over generations, can lead to divergence between populations. B. Genetic drift. Genetic drift refers to the random changes in allele frequencies that occur by chance, especially in small populations. While natural selection acts on advantageous traits, genetic drift can influence allele frequencies without any regard for the fitness of traits. Over time, drift can lead to the loss of alleles and genetic homogeneity within a population. There are two primary ways genetic drift manifests. Bottleneck effect. A significant reduction in population size leads to a decrease in genetic diversity. Founder effect. A small group of individuals from a large population forms a new population with reduced genetic diversity. See natural selection and adaptive evolution. In molecular evolution, natural selection shapes genetic variation by favoring alleles that confer an advantage in survival or reproduction. Adaptive changes often occur in genes that affect traits influencing an organism's fitness. Examples of adaptive molecular evolution include antibiotic resistance in bacteria through mutation in target genes. The evolution of hemoglobin in high-altitude populations, where the hemoglobin gene adapts to bind oxygen more efficiently in low-oxygen environments. Natural selection can also shape the evolution of genetic regulatory networks, controlling gene expression and creating novel physiological traits. These changes can occur gradually through neutral mutations or more rapidly in the case of selective sweeps where a beneficial mutation spreads rapidly through the population. 3. Phylogenetic tree construction. Phylogenetics uses molecular data to infer evolutionary relationships between species. It provides insights into the shared ancestry of organisms and reveals how different species evolved from common ancestors. Constructing a phylogenetic tree involves comparing molecular sequences, DNA, RNA, or protein among species and identifying homologous traits that provide evidence of evolutionary relationships. 8. Molecular data for phylogenetic analysis. DNA sequences, comparing nucleotide sequences of single genes, e.g., ribosomal RNA genes or mitochondrial DNA, or entire genomes. Protein sequences, comparing amino acid sequences of orthologous proteins, proteins derived from a common ancestral gene. Genomic data. Phylogenomic approaches involve comparing complete genomes to construct more accurate trees based on evolutionary history. B. Methods of phylogenetic analysis. There are 3 common methods used to construct phylogenetic trees. Cladistic method. Based on the identification of synapomorphies, shared derived characteristics, among species, it provides a branching diagram, cladogram. Distance-based methods. Measures the genetic distance between species based on sequence differences, e.g., neighbor joining method. Maximum likelihood. Uses probability models of evolutionary processes to infer the most likely tree based on the data. C. Outgroup comparison. In phylogenetic analysis, an outgroup is used to root the tree. An outgroup is a species or group known to have diverged earlier than the groups being studied. This allows scientists to infer the direction of evolutionary changes in the species under consideration. 4. Molecular clocks. The concept of a molecular clock proposes that molecular changes accumulate at a constant rate over time. By comparing the genetic sequences of different species and assuming a constant mutation rate, scientists can estimate the divergence time between species. This method is particularly useful when fossil records are sparse or unavailable. The molecular clock can be used for estimating the timing of evolutionary events and understanding the timing of species diversification. A calibration of molecular clocks. Molecular clocks require calibration, often done using fossil evidence or historical biogeographic events to estimate mutation rates and dates for divergence events. 5. Horizontal gene transfer, HGT. In addition to vertical gene transfer, inheritance from parent to offspring, horizontal gene transfer, HGT, is an essential concept in molecular evolution. HGT refers to the transfer of genes between individuals of the same or different species, bypassing the traditional parent to offspring route. HGT plays a significant role in microbial evolution and has been a key factor in the spread of antibiotic resistance among bacteria. It complicates the reconstruction of phylogenies by introducing foreign genes into an organism's genome. 6. Previous year's GATE questions on molecular evolution Q1, GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. Which of the following is used as the primary method to construct phylogenetic trees? A. Phenotypic similarity. B. Genomic sequence comparison. C. Fossil records. D. Radiometric dating. Answer. B. Genomic sequence comparisons. Explanation. Phylogenetic trees are primarily constructed using genomic or protein sequence comparisons to analyze the evolutionary relationships between organisms. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2021 molecular clocks are calibrated using A. Fossil evidence. B. Genetic drift rates. C. Environmental adaptation rates. D. Random mutations. Answer. A. Fossil evidence. Explanation. Fossil evidence is used to calibrate molecular clocks, providing benchmarks for estimating divergence times based on genetic data. Q3 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2020 which of the following best defines horizontal gene transfer? A. Gene flow between adjacent populations. B. The transfer of genes through reproduction. C. The acquisition of genes from the environment by an organism. D. The gene transfer between organisms in different biological kingdoms. Answer. C. The acquisition of genes from the environment by an organism. Explanation. Horizontal gene transfer is the movement of genetic material between organisms that is not their direct offspring. 7. Conclusion. Molecular evolution is fundamental to understanding how genetic changes over time lead to the diversification of life forms. Techniques such as phylogenetics and molecular clocks have revolutionized our understanding of the evolutionary process. By examining genetic sequences, scientists can trace the evolutionary relationships between species, investigate adaptive changes, and explore the role of mechanisms like genetic drift, selection, and horizontal gene transfer. The ongoing study of molecular evolution continues to provide profound insights into the history of life on Earth. Would you like to move forward with the next topic? Smile. You said, another ChatGPT said, ChatGPT Company Evolution 1. Detailed lecture. Coevolution refers to the reciprocal evolutionary change in interacting species or populations, where the evolution of one species influences the evolution of another. Coevolution is a dynamic and ongoing process that shapes the genetic makeup, behaviors, and adaptations of species involved in the interaction. This concept is most commonly applied to interactions between predators and prey, parasites and hosts, pollinators and plants, and mutualistic relationships, where each species exerts selective pressure on the other. While the ultimate effect of coevolution can lead to increased specialization and adaptations, coevolutionary relationships can also drive diversification. Over time, the species involved evolve new traits that better suit their specific roles in the interaction, creating a feedback loop that drives further adaptations in both organisms. 2. Types of coevolution. A. Mutualistic company evolution. In mutualistic coevolution, both species benefit from the interaction. The adaptation of one species directly enhances the survival or reproductive success of the other species, and vice versa. Over time, this interaction leads to increased interdependence between the two species. Example. Pollinators and plants. Flowering plants and their pollinators, such as bees, butterflies, and birds, are often in mutualistic relationships. Plants evolve traits such as flower shapes, sizes, and colors to attract specific pollinators, while pollinators evolve features like specialized mouthparts or behavior patterns to gather nectar and pollinate efficiently. B. Antagonistic coevolution. Antagonistic coevolution occurs when two interacting species have a predator-prey or host-parasite relationship. In this case, one species tries to exploit the other, leading to evolutionary arms races. In such relationships, each species evolves strategies to outcompete or defeat the other. Predator-prey. Prey species evolve better defense mechanisms, e.g., speed, camouflage, venom, while predators evolve better offensive strategies, e.g., sharper claws, more effective hunting strategies. Host-parasite. Parasites evolve mechanisms to invade hosts, while hosts evolve defenses to resist or tolerate parasitic infection. Example. Gazelles and cheetahs. Cheetahs are among the fastest predators, and gazelles have evolved to be highly agile and capable of sudden, unpredictable movements. As a result, the two species are involved in a coevolutionary arms race where the cheetahs evolve faster sprinting abilities, while gazelles evolve increasingly unpredictable movements. Parasites and hosts. An example can be found in the evolution of resistance in hosts and virulence in parasites. For example, the parasitic roundworm Schistosoma and its human host have evolved increasingly sophisticated strategies in an evolutionary battle. See evolutionary arms races. An evolutionary arms race is a form of coevolution in which two or more species evolve in response to each other's adaptations, especially when one species develops an advantageous trait, prompting a response from the other. This pattern often emerges in predator-prey or parasite-host relationships. The interaction drives continuous cycles of adaptations and counter-adaptations. Example. Ants and aphids. Some ant species protect aphids from predators in exchange for honeydew, a sugary excretion. As aphids are eaten by their predators, such as ladybirds, they evolve chemical defenses, while the ants evolve more effective methods of defending aphids from predators. This creates an ongoing evolutionary interaction between ants and aphids. D. Cospeciation. Cospeciation is the process in which two species evolve in parallel with one another over time. Often seen in host-parasite relationships, when a host species diverges into different species, its associated parasite may also undergo divergence, resulting in parallel speciation events. Example. The relationship between lice and humans is a classic example of cospeciation. As humans evolved into different populations and developed different characteristics, e.g., head louse and body louse, the lice also evolved accordingly in conjunction with human populations. 3. Mechanisms and processes in company evolution. A. Natural selection. Natural selection plays a major role in coevolution by exerting selective pressure on the traits of both species. Each interaction forces the species involved to adapt, survive, and reproduce more effectively. For example, in the case of mutualism, a flower might evolve specific traits that encourage pollinators to frequent them, better scent, color, or flower structure, while the pollinator evolves specialized features to facilitate the pollination process. In an antagonistic relationship like that of predators and prey, natural selection operates on speed, strength, camouflage, and other related traits for both parties. B. Genetic variation. Genetic variation within a species leads to different trait distributions, which interact with the selective pressures exerted by coevolution. Populations with greater genetic variability may have better chances of surviving an arms race between predators and prey. C. Divergence and speciation. Coevolution can lead to speciation, particularly in mutually beneficial relationships or antagonistic interactions where populations are geographically or reproductively isolated and adapt to their specific ecological niches. Speciation can occur due to local adaptive radiations driven by the coevolution of interacting species. 4. Coevolution and evolutionary theory. Coevolution challenges the traditional idea of survival of the fittest, highlighting how evolution is shaped not only by the environment but also by the evolutionary dynamics between species. It emphasizes a more integrated, networked view of evolution, where species evolve in response to the selective pressures imposed by other species, rather than by independent, isolated environmental factors alone. Coevolution has important implications for understanding biological complexity, ecosystem stability, and biodiversity. The intricate web of interactions between species often shapes the overall diversity within ecosystems, encouraging various forms of specialization and adaptation. 5. Previous year's GATE questions on coevolution Q1, GATE Ecology and Evolution 2020. Which of the following interactions is an example of mutualistic coevolution? A. A plant produces nectar to attract pollinators. B. A predator evolves sharper claws to catch its prey. C. A parasite evolves a mechanism to invade the host. D. A plant evolves thorns to defend itself from herbivores. Answer. A. A plant produces nectar to attract pollinators. Explanation. In mutualistic coevolution, both species benefit from the interaction, as in the case of a plant evolving to attract pollinators through nectar, and pollinators benefit from this nectar as a food source. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. The coevolution between parasites and hosts can lead to which of the following? A. Evolution of enhanced defense mechanisms in the host. B. Adaptation of mutualistic behaviors in the host. C. Complete elimination of the parasite. D. Reduced evolutionary change in the host. Answer. A. Evolution of enhanced defense mechanisms in the host. Explanation. In an antagonistic coevolutionary relationship, such as that of a host and its parasite, the host will evolve defense mechanisms to limit the parasite's effect. Q3 Gate Ecology and Evolution 2021. Which of the following is the best example of an evolutionary arms race? A. Two species of birds develop different beak shapes that allow them to use different food sources. B. A predator evolves better hunting strategies to catch its prey, which in turn evolves enhanced defense mechanisms. C. A plant increases its flower production to attract more pollinators. D. Two species of butterflies evolve similar coloration to avoid predation. Answer. B. A predator evolves better hunting strategies to catch its prey, which in turn evolves enhanced defense mechanisms. Explanation. This scenario illustrates the evolutionary arms race, where predator and prey are locked in a cycle of adaptations and counter-adaptations, with both species evolving in response to each other. 6. Conclusion. Coevolution is a key concept in evolutionary biology, influencing the genetic and behavioral traits of species. It shapes mutualistic relationships, antagonistic interactions, and evolutionary dynamics between species. From pollinators and plants to predator-prey relationships, coevolution generates intricate and dynamic evolutionary patterns that result in diverse and specialized interactions. The study of coevolution helps us understand how species influence each other's evolution, fostering biodiversity and complex ecological relationships over time. Would you like to continue with another topic? Smile. You said. How many more topics left? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. We are almost at the end of your list. There are only a few more topics remaining. Population genetics is the branch of genetics that studies the genetic variation within and between populations of organisms and how this variation changes over time due to evolutionary forces. It provides a foundation for understanding how populations evolve, survive, and adapt in response to environmental pressures. Population genetics is concerned with the frequency distribution of alleles in a population and how these frequencies change across generations due to mechanisms such as mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, and migration. Key terms. Allele frequency, the relative frequency of an allele in a population. This is the proportion of all copies of a gene that are of a specific allele type. Gene pool, the total set of alleles in the population, encompassing the genetic diversity present at any one time. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, a theoretical state of genetic balance where allele frequencies remain constant across generations, assuming there is no mutation, migration, natural selection, or genetic drift. 2. Genetic variation and Hardy-Weinberg principles. Genetic variation refers to differences in the genetic makeup genotypes among individuals within a population. These variations result from mutations, genetic recombination, and the inherited differences between parents and offspring. The Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium model serves as a null hypothesis, providing insight into evolutionary processes. The 5 conditions required for Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium are: no natural selection, all genotypes have an equal chance of survival. Random mating, mating is random in the population with no preference for specific genotypes. No migration, no individuals enter or leave the population. No mutation, no new alleles are introduced into the gene pool. Large population, genetic drift has a less significant effect in large populations. Under these conditions, allele and genotype frequencies in a population will not change, maintaining a stable genetic composition. 3. Evolutionary forces in population genetics. Several evolutionary forces drive the genetic structure of populations. A. Natural selection. Natural selection is the process by which traits that enhance survival and reproduction become more common in subsequent generations. It can lead to directional selection, stabilizing selection, or disruptive selection depending on the environment and the traits involved. Directional selection favors one extreme phenotype, causing a shift in the population towards that trait. Stabilizing selection favors intermediate phenotypes, maintaining the status quo in a population. Disruptive selection favors both extreme phenotypes, potentially leading to the creation of distinct subpopulations. B. Genetic drift. Genetic drift refers to random fluctuations in allele frequencies due to chance events, and it has a larger effect in small populations. 2 types of genetic drift are particularly notable. Bottleneck effect, a drastic reduction in the size of a population reduces genetic diversity. Founder effect, when a small group of individuals establishes a new population, the allele frequencies in this population may differ significantly from the original population. C. Mutation. Mutations are changes in the DNA sequence. Although most mutations are neutral or harmful, some may provide a beneficial advantage to an organism, contributing to evolutionary change. Mutations generate new genetic variation, which may be subject to natural selection. D. Migration, gene flow. Gene flow involves the movement of individuals and their genes between populations. This can increase genetic diversity within populations and reduce genetic differences between them, counteracting the effects of genetic drift. 4. Molecular population genetics. Molecular population genetics applies techniques from molecular biology to the study of gene frequency patterns at the molecular level, examining the genetic diversity within and between populations at the level of DNA sequences. The study involves measuring polymorphisms, variation in DNA sequences, and estimating mutation rates. A. Genetic polymorphisms. Genetic polymorphisms are variations in DNA sequences that occur in a population. These can occur in the form of single nucleotide polymorphisms, SNPs, short tandem repeats, STRs, and insertion-deletion polymorphisms, indels. B. Molecular markers. Markers such as microsatellites, restriction fragment length polymorphisms, RFLPs, and SNPs provide a tool for examining the genetic makeup of populations. 5. Importance of population genetics in evolution. Population genetics helps to explain the mechanisms driving evolutionary change and how populations adapt over time. It also provides insights into the genetic structure of species, especially in conservation biology, where understanding gene flow and the genetic health of populations is crucial to protecting biodiversity. By analyzing the genetic diversity within and among populations, population genetics aids in understanding how evolutionary processes work in real-world settings, both in the context of ecological studies and in evolutionary biology. 6. Practice questions Q1 Gate 2020. Which of the following evolutionary forces will lead to reduction of genetic variation within a population? A. Natural selection. B. Migration. C. Genetic drift. D. Mutation. Answer. C. Genetic drift. Explanation. Genetic drift causes random changes in allele frequencies, leading to a loss of genetic variation over time, especially in small populations. While mutation introduces new genetic variation, genetic drift leads to a reduction in variation due to random events. Q2, Gate 2018. If a population is in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, what can be concluded about the evolution of that population? A. The population is evolving at a constant rate. B. There are no evolutionary forces acting on the population. C. The population's genetic diversity is increasing. D. The population's gene pool will change over time. Answer: B. There are no evolutionary forces acting on the population. Explanation: Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium represents a condition where no evolutionary forces, such as natural selection, mutation, migration, genetic drift, are acting on the population. Therefore, allele frequencies do not change from generation to generation. Q3, Gate 2022. In a large population of birds, the frequency of an allele for feather color is 0.7. If the population is in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, what will be the frequency of the heterozygous genotype A in the population? A. 0.49b, 0.42c, 0.30d, 0.18. Answer: B. 0.42. Explanation: In Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, the genotype frequencies are given by P2, P2 for the homozygous dominant AA2, PQ, 2PQ for the heterozygous AQ, 2Q2 for the homozygous recessive A, where P and Q are the frequencies of the dominant and recessive alleles respectively. Given that the frequency of allele A is 0.7, P equals 0.7, the frequency of allele AQ is 0.3, since P plus Q equals 1, P plus Q equals 1. The frequency of the heterozygous genotype A is calculated by the formula 2. PQ equals 2, 0.7, 0.3 equals 0.42. 2PQ equals 2, 0.7, 0.3 equals 0.42. Thus, the frequency of the heterozygous genotype is 0.42. 7. Conclusion: Population genetics plays a vital role in understanding the genetic makeup of populations and the evolutionary processes shaping them. By studying how evolutionary forces such as mutation, selection, genetic drift, and migration act on populations, population genetics provides insight into how species evolve over time and adapt to their environments. It has profound implications for fields like conservation biology, agriculture, and medicine, guiding effective management and protection strategies. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with another topic. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Molecular Evolution 1, Detailed Lecture. Molecular evolution is the study of the evolutionary process at the molecular level, particularly concerning genetic material, DNA, RNA, and proteins. It focuses on how these molecules evolve over time through changes in sequence and structure, and how these molecular changes affect the overall biology and adaptation of organisms. Molecular evolution is crucial for understanding the genetic basis of evolution, species divergence, and the relationship between genetic variation and fitness. At the heart of molecular evolution is the concept that molecular changes, mutations, accumulate over time in the genetic material, and these changes are passed down from one generation to the next. This accumulation is influenced by various evolutionary forces such as mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow. Molecular evolution also deals with the study of homologous sequences and phylogenetics, helping us trace evolutionary pathways. 2. Key concepts in molecular evolution. A. Mutation. Mutations are changes in the nucleotide sequence of DNA. They are the ultimate source of genetic variation in populations, and through their action, they provide the raw material for evolution. Mutations can be classified as point mutations, changes to a single nucleotide, substitution, insertion, or deletion. Frame shift mutations, insertion or deletion of nucleotides that result in the misreading of the codons downstream. Silent mutations, changes that do not affect the amino acid sequence. Missense mutations, alterations in the DNA that result in the substitution of one amino acid for another. Nonsense mutations, mutations that result in premature stop codons and incomplete proteins. B. Genetic drift and fixation. Genetic drift refers to random changes in allele frequencies in a population. It has a more significant effect in small populations, where alleles can become fixed or lost entirely. The process by which alleles become fixed is important because it explains the variation seen in molecular sequences over time. In molecular evolution, drift can result in the random accumulation of mutations in a gene pool over generations. If a mutation becomes fixed, it is said to have reached 100% allele frequency in the population. This leads to reduced variability, which may be neutral or beneficial, depending on its functional implications. See natural selection and molecular evolution. Natural selection operates at the molecular level, as advantageous mutations may lead to the preservation of specific genetic variants. For example, in response to environmental pressures, such as predation or changes in food sources, advantageous genetic changes might be selected for and spread through the population. This mechanism results in adaptive evolution at the molecular level, allowing organisms to better survive and reproduce. D. Phylogenetics. Phylogenetics is the study of the evolutionary history of species or genes. Using molecular data, such as DNA sequences, scientists can build phylogenetic trees or cladograms representing the relationships between species or individuals. Molecular data provide a clear picture of how different lineages are related, in comparison to traditional morphology-based studies. Key methods for inferring phylogenies include sequence alignment, comparing DNA, RNA, or protein sequences to identify similarities and differences. Maximum likelihood and Bayesian methods, statistical methods used to estimate the best phylogenetic tree based on molecular data. Phylogenetic trees help us understand common ancestry and the pattern of divergent evolution of various species, thus tracing evolutionary lineages over time. E. Molecular clock hypothesis. The molecular clock hypothesis posits that molecular changes accumulate in the DNA at a roughly constant rate over time. By measuring the number of genetic differences between species or populations, scientists can estimate the time of divergence between those species. This is especially useful when fossil records are absent or incomplete. However, the rate of evolution might vary due to factors such as the generation time of the species and selective pressures. Some genes evolve more quickly than others, depending on the functional importance of the gene. 3. Theoretical concepts in molecular evolution. Molecular evolution incorporates several theories and models that are essential to understand genetic changes and their rates. Neutral theory of molecular evolution, proposed by Moto Kimura, it argues that most evolutionary changes at the molecular level are due to genetic drift rather than natural selection, and that most mutations are neutral, they don't affect fitness. Rate of molecular evolution. The rate at which mutations accumulate in a genome varies significantly among species and different genes. For example, rRNA genes are highly conserved, while mitochondrial genes evolve much more rapidly in certain species. 4. Applications of molecular evolution. Molecular evolution is widely used in various biological fields. Evolutionary biology. Understanding the evolutionary processes that have shaped biodiversity. Conservation biology. Applying molecular evolution tools to assess genetic diversity, species relationships, and genetic bottlenecks. Agriculture and medicine. Studying the molecular evolution of pathogens, e.g., bacteria or viruses, to understand how they evolve resistance to drugs or vaccines. Additionally, gene therapy and the study of molecular pathways also benefit from insights into how molecular systems evolve in both health and disease contexts. 5. Practice questions Q1, GATE 2020. Which of the following methods is used to infer phylogenetic relationships between organisms based on molecular data? A. Genetic classification. B. Fossil record comparison. C. DNA sequence alignment. D. Morphological analysis. Answer. C. DNA sequence alignment. Explanation. Phylogenetic relationships are inferred by comparing the molecular data, like DNA sequences, to identify similarities and differences, which helps build phylogenetic trees. DNA sequence alignment is the primary method used for this analysis. Q2, GATE 2017. The molecular clock hypothesis states that A. Mutation rates are constant across generations. B. Evolution occurs through mutations at a constant rate in the genome over time. C. Mutations never lead to evolutionary changes. D. Natural selection regulates mutation rates in populations. Answer. B. Evolution occurs through mutations at a constant rate in the genome over time. Explanation. The molecular clock hypothesis suggests that molecular changes accumulate at a roughly constant rate over time and can be used to estimate the time of divergence between species, assuming that mutations accumulate in a regular, predictable manner. Q3, GATE 2021. Which of the following types of mutations would likely lead to a silent mutation? A. A-point mutation that does not alter the amino acid sequence. B. A frame shift mutation causing a large insertion. C. A mutation resulting in a premature stop codon. D. A mutation that creates a non-functional protein. Answer. A. A-point mutation that does not alter the amino acid sequence. Explanation. A silent mutation is one that occurs when a point mutation, change in a single nucleotide, does not affect the amino acid sequence due to redundancy in the genetic code. Multiple codons can code for the same amino acid. These mutations do not have any functional impact. 6. Conclusion. Molecular evolution has provided profound insights into the genetic and evolutionary history of life on Earth. It highlights how genetic sequences change over time, how these changes are shaped by evolutionary forces, and the mechanisms that contribute to species diversification. The study of molecular evolution helps us understand deep evolutionary processes and track the molecular mechanisms behind adaptation and survival in a variety of biological contexts. Would you like to move on to another topic? Let me know. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT Macroevolution 1. Detailed lecture. Macroevolution refers to evolutionary changes that occur at a level above that of species, often resulting in the formation of new taxonomic groups. Unlike microevolution, which deals with small changes within populations, such as allele frequency shifts, macroevolution encompasses large-scale phenomena, such as the origin of new species, genera, families, or even higher taxonomic categories, and the branching of the tree of life over geological time. Macroevolutionary processes often include speciation, the formation of new species, adaptive radiations, extinctions, and the origin of major evolutionary innovations. These large-scale evolutionary changes involve the accumulation of small microevolutionary changes that become significant over long periods of time, giving rise to significant evolutionary events. 2. Speciation and models of macroevolution. The process of speciation, wherein a single species diverges into two or more genetically distinct species, is one of the key mechanisms of macroevolution. 8. Modes of speciation. Speciation is usually categorized into different models, depending on how populations are isolated and the mechanisms driving the divergence. Allopatric speciation, the most common form of speciation, it occurs when populations of a species become geographically isolated, e.g., by a mountain range or a river, and no longer interbreed. Over time, genetic differences accumulate due to mutation, genetic drift, and natural selection, eventually resulting in reproductive isolation, such that even if the geographical barrier is removed, the two groups can no longer mate successfully. Sympatric speciation, this occurs without geographical isolation. Speciation happens in a population that inhabits the same geographic area but diverges into different species due to differences in behavior, ecological niches, or reproductive timing. This type of speciation is often seen in plants through mechanisms like polyploidy, doubling of the chromosome number. Parapatric speciation, in this model, populations that are adjacent but occupy different habitats experience a gradient in selective pressures. Though gene flow is still possible, differing selective pressures can lead to divergence over time. Parapatric speciation, a special case of allopatric speciation where a small, peripheral population is isolated from the main population. Since this population is small, it is especially subject to genetic drift, which can accelerate divergence in the development of new species. B. Adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation occurs when a single lineage rapidly diversifies into a variety of forms to exploit different ecological niches. This phenomenon often happens after mass extinction events when surviving organisms rapidly evolve into available vacant niches. Examples of adaptive radiation are seen in the diversification of Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands, the explosion of mammalian diversity after the extinction of the dinosaurs. 3. Evolutionary trends in macroevolution. Over long periods of time, macroevolution gives rise to evolutionary trends or patterns. These trends may not always be linear, but there are patterns such as Bergmann's rule. In colder climates, species tend to have larger body sizes than those in warmer areas, as a result of thermoregulation. Allen's rule. In colder climates, animals tend to have shorter appendages, minimizing heat loss. Coevolution. Coevolution refers to the reciprocal evolutionary changes that occur between pairs of species that interact closely, such as predator-prey relationships, or mutualistic relationships between plants and pollinators. 4. Mass extinctions and their role in macroevolution. Mass extinctions are significant events in macroevolutionary history, during which a large proportion of the species on Earth become extinct in a short geological period. The causes of mass extinction may include asteroid impacts, volcanic activity, climate change, and changes in sea levels. Mass extinctions may act as a catalyst for the evolution of new forms of life, often through the process of adaptive radiation. The most famous example is the extinction event that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, allowing mammals to diversify and dominate. 5. The role of developmental evolution in macroevolution. The study of how developmental processes, also known as evo-devo, contribute to macroevolution is crucial in understanding the origin of new species and evolutionary innovations. Evolutionary changes in the regulatory genes that control the development of body plans can lead to profound morphological changes. Examples include Hox genes, which regulate the development of body segmentation in animals. Changes in these genes can lead to new body structures and the evolution of new body plans. Regulatory networks that control timing of development, heterochrony, or changes in cell division, can alter body form and even lead to new species. 6. Practice questions. Q1 Gate 2020. Which of the following processes is most likely responsible for the rapid appearance of new forms of life after mass extinctions? A. Allopatric speciation. B. Adaptive radiation. C. Coevolution. D. Sympatric speciation. Answer. B. Adaptive radiation. Explanation. After mass extinctions, the surviving species often undergo adaptive radiation, where they rapidly diversify into new forms to occupy available ecological niches. This rapid speciation and diversification result in the emergence of new species over a relatively short period. Q2 Gate 2018. Which mode of speciation is characterized by the geographic isolation of populations? A. Sympatric speciation. B. Parapatric speciation. C. Allopatric speciation. D. Parapatric speciation. Answer. C. Allopatric speciation. Explanation. Allopatric speciation occurs when populations are geographically isolated, leading to the accumulation of genetic differences through drift, mutation, and natural selection. This eventually results in the formation of new species that are reproductively isolated. Q3 Gate 2017. Which of the following is true about adaptive radiation? A. It involves the rapid diversification of species to exploit different ecological niches. B. It only occurs in small, geographically isolated populations. C. It is always triggered by the extinction of competitors. D. It leads to the reduction of genetic variation within a population. Answer. It involves the rapid diversification of species to exploit different ecological niches. Explanation. Adaptive radiation involves the rapid diversification of a lineage into a variety of species, often seen in newly available ecological niches. While extinction events can sometimes trigger adaptive radiation, the critical feature is evolution refers to evolutionary changes that occur at a level above that of species, often resulting in the formation of new taxonomic groups. Unlike microevolution, which deals with small changes within populations, such as allele frequency shifts, macroevolution encompasses large-scale phenomena, such as the origin of new species, genera, families, or even higher taxonomic categories, and the branching of the tree of life over geological time. Macroevolutionary processes often include speciation, the formation of new species, adaptive radiations, extinctions, and the origin of major evolutionary innovations. These evolutionary changes involve the accumulation of small microevolutionary changes that become significant over long periods of time, giving rise to significant evolutionary events. 2. Speciation and models of macroevolution. The process of speciation, wherein a single species diverges into two or more genetically distinct species, is one of the key mechanisms of macroevolution. A. Modes of speciation. Speciation is usually categorized into different models, depending on how populations are isolated and the mechanisms driving the divergence. Allopatric speciation, the most common form of speciation, it occurs when populations of a species become geographically isolated, e.g., by a mountain range or a river, and no longer interbreed. Over time, genetic differences accumulate due to mutation, genetic drift, and natural selection, eventually resulting in reproductive isolation, such that even if the geographical barrier is removed, the two groups can no longer mate successfully. Sympatric speciation, this occurs without geographical isolation. Speciation happens in a population that inhabits the same geographic area but diverges into different species due to differences in behavior, ecological niches, or reproductive timing. This type of speciation is often seen in plants through mechanisms like polyploidy, doubling of the chromosome number. Parapatric speciation. In this model, populations that are adjacent but occupy different habitats experience a gradient in selective pressures. Though gene flow is still possible, differing selective pressures can lead to divergence over time. Parapatric speciation, a special case of allopatric speciation where a small, peripheral population is isolated from the main population. Since this population is small, it is especially subject to genetic drift, which can accelerate divergence in the development of new species. B. Adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation occurs when a single lineage rapidly diversifies into a variety of forms to exploit different ecological niches. This phenomenon often happens after mass extinction events when surviving organisms rapidly evolve into available vacant niches. Examples of adaptive radiation are seen in the diversification of Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands, the explosion of mammalian diversity after the extinction of the dinosaurs. 3. Evolutionary trends in macroevolution. Over long periods of time, macroevolution gives rise to evolutionary trends or patterns. These trends may not always be linear, but there are patterns such as Bergmann's rule. In colder climates, species tend to have larger body sizes than those in warmer areas, as a result of thermoregulation. Allen's rule. In colder climates, animals tend to have shorter appendages, minimizing heat loss. Coevolution. Coevolution refers to the reciprocal evolutionary changes that occur between pairs of species that interact closely, such as predator-prey relationships, or mutualistic relationships between plants and pollinators. 4. Mass extinctions and their role in macroevolution. Mass extinctions are significant events in macroevolutionary history, during which a large proportion of the species on Earth become extinct in a short geological period. The causes of mass extinction may include asteroid impacts, volcanic activity, climate change, and changes in sea levels. Mass extinctions may act as a catalyst for the evolution of new forms of life, often through the process of adaptive radiation. The most famous example is the extinction event that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, allowing mammals to diversify and dominate. 5. The role of developmental evolution in macroevolution. The study of how developmental processes, also known as evo-devo, contribute to macroevolution is crucial in understanding the origin of new species and evolutionary innovations. Evolutionary changes in the regulatory genes that control the development of body plans can lead to profound morphological changes. Examples include Hox genes, which regulate the development of body segmentation in animals. Changes in these genes can lead to new body structures and the evolution of new body plans. Regulatory networks that control timing of development, heterochrony, or changes in cell division, can alter body form and even lead to new species. 6. Practice questions. Q1 Gate 2020. Which of the following processes is most likely responsible for the rapid appearance of new forms of life after mass extinctions? A. Allopatric speciation. B. Adaptive radiation. C. Coevolution. D. Sympatric speciation. Answer: B. Adaptive radiation. Explanation. After mass extinctions, the surviving species often undergo adaptive radiation, where they rapidly diversify into new forms to occupy available ecological niches. This rapid speciation and diversification result in the emergence of new species over a relatively short period. Q2, Gate 2018. Which mode of speciation is characterized by the geographic isolation of populations? A. Sympatric speciation. B. Parapatric speciation. C. Allopatric speciation. D. Parapatric speciation. Answer: C. Allopatric speciation. Explanation. Allopatric speciation occurs when populations are geographically isolated, leading to the accumulation of genetic differences through drift, mutation, and natural selection. This eventually results in the formation of new species that are reproductively isolated. Q3, Gate 2017. Which of the following is true about adaptive radiation? A. It involves the rapid diversification of species to exploit different ecological niches. B. It only occurs in small, geographically isolated populations. C. It is always triggered by the extinction of competitors. D. It leads to the reduction of genetic variation within a population. Answer: It involves the rapid diversification of species to exploit different ecological niches. Explanation. Adaptive radiation involves the rapid diversification of a lineage into a variety of species, often seen in newly available ecological niches. While extinction events can sometimes trigger adaptive radiation, the critical feature is the adaptive exploitation of new niches. 7. Conclusion. Macroevolution helps us understand large-scale evolutionary changes in the complex processes that have given rise to the vast diversity of life on Earth. By studying speciation, adaptive radiation, extinction events, and major evolutionary trends, we gain insight into the origins and history of life. Understanding the forces shaping these changes gives us a better grasp of biodiversity and evolutionary patterns that have unfolded over millions of years. Would you like to proceed with another topic? Let me know. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Evolution of Behavior 1, Detailed Lecture. The evolution of behavior studies how behaviors evolve and contribute to survival and reproduction in different environments. Behavioral traits are subject to natural selection just like physical traits, because behaviors can influence an organism's chances of survival, reproduction, and therefore the transmission of genetic material. These behaviors evolve through genetic inheritance, learning, and adaptive processes that improve an organism's fitness in a given ecological context. Behavioral ecology, a key field in evolutionary biology, focuses on understanding how behavior is shaped by natural selection, and how behaviors contribute to ecological success. It covers a broad range of topics, from foraging strategies to mating behaviors, and how these interact with an organism's environment to enhance fitness. 2. Types of behavior. A. Innate versus learned behavior. Innate behavior, also called instinctual behavior, is genetically programmed and performed without prior experience. These behaviors are inherited through genes and are typically species-specific. Examples include reflexes, like a baby bird's gaping response when its parent approaches, imprinting, and fixed action patterns FAP. Learned behavior, these behaviors are acquired through experience and environmental interactions. Animals may alter their responses to certain stimuli based on past experiences. For example, a dog learning to sit after being rewarded for doing so. B. Genetic basis of behavior. Genetic variations in organisms contribute to the expression of certain behaviors. Studies using model organisms like Drosophila, fruit flies, and Mus musculus, house mice, have shown that genetic manipulation can result in different behavioral phenotypes. Such findings point to the role of genes in behavioral development. For instance, mutations in a single gene can alter complex behaviors like aggression. A gene mutation can result in altered aggression patterns in animals. Foraging behavior. Variations in genes affect how an animal forages and searches for food, often increasing or decreasing efficiency. 3. Theories of the evolution of behavior. A. Kin selection and altruism. Kin selection theory explains altruistic behaviors in terms of genetic relatedness. This concept proposes that organisms may behave in a way that benefits the survival of their relatives, even at a cost to their own fitness. The logic is that by helping relatives, an individual ensures the continuation of shared genetic material. For example, an alarm call in animals may warn others of danger, even though the caller may risk itself to predators. However, the relatives receiving the call may be able to escape, ensuring their shared genetic code is preserved. B. Inclusive fitness. Inclusive fitness refers to an organism's success in passing its genes to the next generation through its offspring, as well as through aiding the reproduction of related individuals. Kin selection is one form of achieving high inclusive fitness, and it contributes to behaviors like cooperation and nepotism. C. Evolutionarily stable strategies, ESS. The concept of an S stems from game theory and represents behaviors or strategies that are stable in an evolutionary sense. An S will persist in a population, provided it cannot be easily invaded by alternative strategies. A common example is the hawk-dove strategy, which models the interaction between two different strategies in a contest, illustrating the balance between aggressive and non-aggressive strategies within populations. D. Sexual selection. Sexual selection refers to natural selection for traits that enhance an organism's chances of reproducing, even if these traits are not directly related to survival. Male-male competition and female choice are two mechanisms of sexual selection. Traits such as bright plumage in male birds, antler size in deer, or elaborate courtship behaviors are often sexually selected traits, even if they do not contribute directly to survival. E. Reciprocal altruism. This theory suggests that for example, an animal may share food with another animal, and later, the recipient will help it in return when needed. This type of cooperation evolves because the benefits of receiving help from others outweigh the costs. F. Behavioral synchrony. Behavioral synchrony is when individuals in a population perform the same actions or adjust their activities in unison, typically to maintain social harmony and coordination in groups. Examples include mating calls in amphibians or hunting behavior in wolves. Synchrony can enhance success by improving group coordination, especially during critical activities like foraging, mating, or defense. 4. Evolution of social behavior. In social animals, behaviors such as cooperation and hierarchy can evolve and are influenced by ecological factors and evolutionary pressures. Social behaviors play a significant role in maintaining structure and stability within groups, enhancing collective survival. A. Cooperation. Cooperative behavior occurs when individuals work together for mutual benefit, either foraging, defending territory, or raising offspring. It can evolve under natural selection if the benefits of cooperation outweigh the costs, which is why cooperative breeding is observed in some species. B. Dominance hierarchy. Social hierarchies are established through aggression, displays of power, or coalitions, resulting in individuals having ranked access to resources. This structure reduces conflict and organizes relationships within groups. For example, among primates, alpha males secure the best access to mates and resources. C. Group selection. Although widely debated, group selection posits that natural selection may act at the level of groups, rather than individuals. Groups with cooperative members might have better survival rates than those with more selfish members, promoting the evolution of altruistic behaviors within groups. 5. Practice questions Q1, GATE 2019. Which of the following is the most likely explanation for why animals exhibit cooperative behavior? A. To maximize their individual genetic contribution. B. To ensure survival of kin and protect shared genetic material. C. To guarantee they will mate with the most dominant individual. D. To ensure better competition within the group. Answer. B. To ensure survival of kin and protect shared genetic material. Explanation. Cooperative behavior is often explained through kin selection, where individuals help relatives to increase the survival of shared genes. Thus, cooperative behavior usually maximizes the indirect fitness of the individual through helping kin. Q2, GATE 2021. Which type of selection acts on traits that enhance an individual's ability to attract mates? A. Natural selection. B. Sexual selection. C. Kin selection. D. Group selection. Answer. B. Sexual selection. Explanation. Sexual selection is the form of natural selection that works specifically to enhance an individual's ability to secure mates. Traits like the peacock's tail, which are meant to attract females, are often a result of sexual selection. Q3, GATE 2018. Which of the following does reciprocal altruism require? A. Immediate genetic benefits. B. Long-term cooperation with non-relatives. C. Aggression towards kin. D. Competitive resource distribution. Answer. B. Long-term cooperation with non-relatives. Explanation. Reciprocal altruism involves cooperation between individuals who are not related but expect the favor to be returned later. It is based on the principle of tit for tat, where one individual helps another and receives help in return when needed. 6. Conclusion. The evolution of behavior provides a window into understanding how behaviors that improve fitness have evolved and contributed to an organism's survival and reproduction. The field incorporates multiple mechanisms, such as natural selection, sexual selection, kin selection, and reciprocal altruism, all working together to shape how individuals behave in their environments. Behavior plays a pivotal role in the ecology and evolution of species, determining their interactions, survival strategies, and ability to adapt to changing environments. Would you like to move on to another topic, or do you have more questions? You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Evolution of Brain and Behavior 1. Detailed lecture. The evolution of brain and behavior explores how the brain has evolved in different species over time and how these changes influence behavioral patterns. The complexity of the brain in various organisms is directly linked to their survival strategies and the adaptive significance of their behaviors. Understanding brain evolution requires examining both neurological development and how the changes in brain structure and function have led to the vast diversity of behavior observed across species. Behavioral evolution, particularly in vertebrates and humans, is fundamentally tied to the capacity of the nervous system, especially the brain, to process information, make decisions, and produce adaptive behaviors. The brain is not only responsible for controlling voluntary movement but also influences cognitive abilities like memory, emotion, decision-making, and problem-solving. 2. Neuroanatomy and evolution of brain structures. Over evolutionary time, significant changes in brain size, structure, and specialization have taken place. The encephalization quotient EQ is a key indicator of how much larger the brain is in relation to an expected brain size for an animal's body mass. Species with a higher EQ, like humans, demonstrate a larger, more developed brain relative to their body size, indicating higher cognitive functions. 8. Major brain regions. Forebrain. The forebrain is the most complex part of the brain and is especially prominent in higher vertebrates, including mammals. It includes the cerebrum, which is responsible for higher order functions like sensory processing, reasoning, and motor control. The diencephalon, including the thalamus and hypothalamus, coordinates sensory and autonomic functions. Midbrain, responsible for auditory and visual processing, the midbrain coordinates sensory information and helps in initiating movement. In fish and amphibians, the midbrain is larger, relative to the forebrain, because sensory processing is vital for survival. Hindbrain. The hindbrain controls basic survival functions such as breathing, heart rate, and movement coordination. The cerebellum is part of the hindbrain and is crucial for motor control and balance, playing a significant role in learning motor skills and fine movements. B. Evolution of specific brain areas. Cerebrum and neocortex. In mammals, the evolution of the neocortex is of particular interest, as it is involved in higher cognitive functions, such as decision-making, spatial awareness, and problem-solving. Mammals, especially humans, have developed extensive areas of the neocortex for complex sensory processing, cognition, and social behavior. In primates, the prefrontal cortex, associated with planning, reasoning, and decision-making, is highly developed, which is linked to their advanced problem-solving abilities and social interactions. Limbic system. The limbic system, which includes structures like the amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus, is responsible for emotions, memory formation, and motivation. Evolutionarily, the limbic system allows animals to process emotions, making it an essential system for managing social interactions, survival behaviors such as avoiding threats, and learning experiences. 3. Evolution of cognitive abilities. One of the remarkable outcomes of brain evolution is the emergence of cognitive abilities that facilitate behaviors such as learning, memory, and decision-making. These abilities help animals interact with and adapt to changing environments and social contexts. Cognitive processes are linked to the brain's ability to encode, store, and retrieve information. 8. Learning and memory. Classical conditioning. This is a process by which an organism learns to associate one stimulus with another. It involves the formation of associations between neutral and meaningful stimuli. Operant conditioning. In this case, an animal learns a behavior based on rewards or punishments. This type of learning is crucial for survival as animals learn to avoid harmful stimuli or to seek out rewarding stimuli. B. Sensory processing. Different species evolve specialized brain structures to process sensory input based on their ecological needs. Echolocation in bats involves specialized brain regions for interpreting sound. Electroreception in fish has led to brain structures that can process electrical signals. Vision has evolved extensively in various animals, with primates and some birds having specialized visual processing regions for color and movement detection. 4. Evolution of behavior in context. Behavioral evolution, particularly foraging behavior, social behavior, and communication, is influenced by brain development. The development of brain areas involved in higher order behavior significantly enhances the flexibility of responses in an organism's behavioral repertoire, contributing to survival in varied environments. 8. Foraging behavior and decision-making. Foraging strategies are crucial for animal survival, involving optimal decision-making processes in response to environmental cues. Optimal foraging theory oft suggests that organisms will maximize energy intake per unit of foraging time, shaping behaviors related to resource search. Decision-making areas of the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, are responsible for evaluating the costs and benefits of different foraging options, a behavior seen in species ranging from primates to birds. B. Social and communication behaviors. Highly social animals, like primates, have developed complex communication systems, which are underpinned by sophisticated brain structures. Vocalizations like calls or songs in birds or primates are processed in the brain and are often linked to social structure and mating success. Social learning, including the ability to learn from others' experiences and modify behavior accordingly, is governed by regions in the brain related to memory, e.g., hippocampus and cortex. 5. The evolution of brain behavior in humans. Humans exhibit some of the most complex brain functions and behaviors due to the evolution of the prefrontal cortex, association areas, and complex social cognition abilities. This evolution has allowed humans to develop advanced social structures, language, culture, and technologies that influence behavior across generations. Humans also exhibit unique learning behaviors, such as imitation and cultural transmission, which allow behaviors to be passed down without genetic changes, contributing to cumulative cultural evolution. The expansion of mirror neurons, thought to play a role in empathy and social interactions, has also shaped human behavior. 6. Practice questions Q1, GATE 2019. Which of the following brain regions is primarily responsible for higher cognitive functions such as decision-making and reasoning in humans? A. Cerebellum. B. Hippocampus. C. Prefrontal cortex. D. Medulla. Answer. C. Prefrontal cortex. Explanation. The prefrontal cortex is a part of the brain's frontal lobes and is involved in higher cognitive processes such as decision-making, planning, problem-solving, and reasoning. Q2, GATE 2017. Which of the following best describes skin selection and evolutionary behavior? A. Individuals help others to increase their direct genetic contribution to the next generation. B. Individuals help others who are genetically related, enhancing their indirect fitness. C. All forms of altruistic behavior lead to cooperative social groups. D. Only genetically similar individuals cooperate in evolution. Answer. B. Individuals help others who are genetically related, enhancing their indirect fitness. Explanation. Kin selection is a form of natural selection that favors behaviors which increase the reproductive success of relatives, even at a cost to the individual performing the behavior. It explains altruistic acts towards genetically related individuals, ensuring the survival of shared genetic material. Q3, GATE 2021. In the evolutionary development of social behavior, which of the following is true about the relationship between brain size and social complexity? A. Social complexity increases with a decrease in brain size. B. Social complexity is unrelated to brain size. C. Brain size is correlated with the ability to form larger and more complex social networks. D. Larger brain sizes lead to higher reproductive success in social species. Answer. C. Brain size is correlated with the ability to form larger and more complex social networks. Explanation. The evolution of larger brains, particularly the neocortex, is associated with the ability of animals, especially primates, to manage complex social relationships. Larger brain sizes allow for sophisticated problem-solving, communication, and social interactions, which are crucial for survival in social groups. 7. Conclusion. The evolution of brain and behavior emphasizes how changes in the brain structure and function over time have led to the development of complex behaviors that enhance survival and reproduction. From foraging strategies to social interactions and cognitive flexibility, these adaptations highlight the interplay between brain evolution and behavioral complexity. Studying this evolution offers insights into how diverse species, including humans, have responded to environmental challenges, shaping their behavior over generations. Would you like to continue with another topic or do you have additional questions? You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Mating Systems and Parental Investment 1. Detailed lecture. The concept of mating systems and parental investment are central to the study of animal behavior and evolutionary biology. Mating systems define the way in which species mate and the number of mates an individual has during a given breeding season, while parental investment involves the time and energy parents devote to the care of their offspring. Both concepts are strongly influenced by evolutionary pressures. Mating systems are determined by how animals maximize their reproductive success, fitness, which is affected by available resources, competition, and social structure. Parental investment theory, proposed by Robert Trivers in 1972, asserts that there is a trade-off between the benefits of producing offspring and the costs of raising them. In essence, different species exhibit varied mating systems and parental investment strategies depending on their evolutionary adaptations for survival and reproduction in their specific ecological contexts. 2. Mating systems. Mating systems can be broadly classified into the following categories, which reflect the social structure and reproductive strategies of different species. A. Monogamy. Monogamy refers to a mating system where one male pairs with one female during a breeding season or for life. This is the most common mating system in birds, e.g., swans, gibbons, and some mammals. Social monogamy, a social arrangement where individuals live together and cooperate in raising offspring, but might engage in extra pair copulations, e.g., some birds. Genetic monogamy, when both male and female are sexually exclusive and produce offspring only with each other. True genetic monogamy is rare, but some species, like prairie voles, demonstrate this form of exclusive pair bonding. Advantages. Cooperative care, both parents contribute to the survival of offspring. Parental certainty, the male is certain that his offspring are genetically related to him. Resource defense, monogamous pairs may work together to defend critical resources for their young. B. Polygyny. Polygyny is a mating system where one male mates with multiple females during a breeding season. This system is common in many mammals, such as lions, elephants, and gorillas. Female defense polygyny, the male defends a group of females against other males. Resource defense polygyny, the male defends a resource, such as territory or food, that attracts females. Advantages. Increased reproductive success for males. Males can increase their reproductive success by mating with many females, but often only one male monopolizes the access to mates. Exploiting female choice. Females may choose high-quality males that can successfully protect resources or offer better genes. C. Polyandry. In polyandry, one female mates with multiple males. While this system is relatively rare, it is observed in certain bird species, e.g., cicadas and some insects. Polyandry can also occur in mammals like the spotted hyena. Simultaneous polyandry. A female mates with multiple males at the same time, and the males may share responsibilities, such as parental care. Sequential polyandry. The female mates with several males over time, typically in different breeding seasons. Advantages. Genetic diversity. Females can maximize genetic diversity in their offspring by mating with different males. Reduced male competition. In some species, the cost of male competition decreases because more than one male is involved. D. Promiscuity. Promiscuity is a mating system where both males and females have multiple mates. This system is common in many species of mammals, birds, and insects, where either sex may not form lasting pair bonds or engage in extensive cooperation in offspring care. Sperm competition. In species with promiscuous mating systems, males engage in sperm competition, where the male with the highest quantity or quality of sperm wins paternity of the female's eggs. Parental investment in promiscuous species. Often, the lack of a stable male-female bond may lead to reduced direct parental investment by the male, but some males may still invest in offspring in terms of protection or resources. Advantages. Genetic diversity. This system allows for greater variation in offspring, which may increase the fitness of the species. Avoidance of inbreeding. Promiscuity can prevent inbreeding by promoting mating among individuals from different social groups. 3. Parental investment theory. Parental investment theory argues that the amount of investment a parent makes in their offspring is influenced by the relative costs and benefits of raising those offspring versus producing additional ones. Parental investment can be direct, e.g., providing food, protection, or indirect, e.g., teaching offspring survival skills. Trivers theory explains that the degree of parental investment, particularly in mammals and birds, often correlates with female reproductive roles, since females generally invest more in gestation, egg-laying, and nursing. A female parental investment. Mammals, females have internal gestation, except in marsupials, and invest time and energy in lactation and providing care. Birds, females often take the lead in incubating eggs, whereas males may help with feeding or territory defense. B. Male parental investment. While females generally invest more in offspring care, many species, especially birds and some mammals like seahorses, have evolved strategies where males provide significant care. Biparental care, seen in species like songbirds, where both male and female take turns incubating eggs and feeding young. Paternal investment, in species where males are sure they are the fathers, paternal care includes protection, feeding, and territory defense to ensure the survival of offspring. See reproductive strategies of males versus females. Females tend to be more selective in choosing mates due to the higher initial investment required in offspring care. In contrast, males, having less direct investment in offspring, except in species with unusual reproductive strategies, compete for access to females. Sexual selection, the idea that males and females evolve in response to each other's reproductive strategies, leading to traits like mate guarding, elaborate courtship displays, and competition for mates. This enhances their mating success but is costly. 4. Practice questions. Q1 Gate 2022. In which of the following mating systems is one male associated with multiple females and typically defends resources that attract females? A. Monogamy. B. Polygyny. C. Polyandry. D. Promiscuity. Answer. B. Polygyny. Explanation. In polygyny, one male mates with several females, and he may defend a territory or resource that attracts females. Q2 Gate 2019. Which of the following is the primary characteristic of female-biased parental investment? A. Both sexes invest equally in offspring care. B. Female investments involve egg production and lactation. C. Males defend territory but females do not. D. Males provide the majority of offspring care. Answer. B. Female investments involve egg production and lactation. Explanation. Female-biased parental investment is typical in many species where females provide significant investment in reproduction and offspring care, such as egg production and lactation. Q3 Gate 2021. What does parental investment theory primarily predict about mating behavior? A. Mating systems are irrelevant to the amount of parental care provided. B. The sex providing more parental care will typically be choosier in selecting mates. C. Mating success is irrelevant to the amount of parental care provided. D. Males invest equally in offspring regardless of the social environment. Answer. B. The sex providing more parental care will typically be choosier in selecting mates. Explanation. The theory predicts that the sex investing more time and resources in offspring care will be more selective in mate choice to ensure the best possible genetic investment. 5. Conclusion. Mating systems and parental investment strategies are crucial concepts in evolutionary biology. The variation in these systems is driven by the need to maximize reproductive success while balancing the costs and benefits of raising offspring. These systems help explain diverse behaviors ranging from mate guarding and sexual dimorphism to parental care and resource distribution. Understanding these concepts allows us to better comprehend how different species evolve and adapt to their environments. Let me know if you'd like to continue with another topic or if you have further questions. You said. How many topics left now? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. We have only 3 more topics left to complete the full set. Let's continue from there. You said. Continue please. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Reproductive success in kin selection 1. Detailed lecture. Reproductive success, often referred to as fitness, refers to an individual's ability to pass on its genes to the next generation through reproduction. It is a central concept in evolutionary theory. The ultimate measure of fitness is the number of offspring that survive and reproduce. However, the key aspect of reproductive success involves understanding the evolutionary strategies behind kin selection, which explains how animals might increase the reproductive success of their genetic relatives. Kin selection is based on the theory that helping relatives' kin can also promote one's genetic legacy, even if it reduces direct personal reproductive success. This is described through Hamilton's rule, which predicts that helping kin is an evolutionary advantage if the benefit to the helper's relatives, measured in terms of increased fitness multiplied by the degree of genetic relatedness, outweighs the cost to the helper. Hamilton's rule can be expressed as RB and GT, C, where R equals relatedness between the helper and the recipient, the probability that they share a particular gene, B equals benefit to the recipient, C equals cost to the helper. For kin selection to work, an individual should help relatives in proportion to their genetic relatedness. Kinship plays a significant role in several behavioral phenomena such as altruism, cooperation, and reciprocity. 2. Altruism in kin selection. Altruistic behavior, where an individual sacrifices its own reproductive success to benefit another, e.g., alarm calling in birds, eusocial behavior in insects, can be explained through kin selection. For instance, worker bees in a colony do not reproduce themselves but assist the queen in raising offspring. Here, the workers are closely related to the queen's offspring, and their actions ensure that their own genes are passed on through the queen's progeny. Eusociality. This is a notable example of kin selection and altruism. In eusocial species like ants, bees, and termites, most individuals are sterile workers or soldiers whose sole purpose is to assist the reproductive queen and her offspring. Alarm calling. In many social animals, individuals may engage in alarm calling to alert the group of a predator. Although it may attract the predator, the call ensures that relatives who share a significant portion of genes are protected. 3. Kin selection in evolutionary biology. Kin selection is a fundamental concept to understand behaviors that appear altruistic or cooperative. These behaviors may not directly increase the individual's reproductive success but will increase the success of genetically related individuals, thus ensuring the survival and reproduction of shared genetic traits. In some social species, helping behavior and cooperation are genetically adaptive because they enhance the inclusive fitness of the helpers. 4. Practice questions Q1 Gate 2020. Which of the following is the concept that helps explain why organisms may exhibit cooperative or altruistic behavior towards their kin? A. Natural selection. B. Group selection. C. Kin selection. D. Frequency-dependent selection. Answer. C. Kin selection. Explanation. Kin selection theory explains altruistic behavior directed towards genetically related individuals, enhancing the helper's inclusive fitness. This is a key component in understanding social and cooperative behaviors in animals. Q2 Gate 2021. In the context of kin selection, what does Hamilton's rule suggest? A. Kin selection is only beneficial in large social groups. B. The benefit of helping relatives must exceed the cost to the helper, multiplied by the relatedness factor. C. Kin selection will lead to group extinction if applied to all species. D. Kin selection is not applicable to eusocial species. Answer. B. The benefit of helping relatives must exceed the cost to the helper, multiplied by the relatedness factor. Explanation. Hamilton's rule predicts that an individual should act altruistically towards relatives if the benefit to relatives B multiplied by the genetic relatedness R exceeds the cost C to the individual. Q3 Gate 2019. Which of the following scenarios is an example of kin selection? A. A male lion competing with other males for territory. B. A female bee sacrificing her life to protect the colony. C. A bat sharing blood with unrelated individuals. D. A peacock displaying its tail to attract a mate. Answer. B. A female bee sacrificing her life to protect the colony. Explanation. Kin selection explains this behavior as the female bee, a worker, is helping her close genetic relatives, the queen's offspring, by protecting the colony, despite the cost of her life. 5. Conclusion. The study of reproductive success in kin selection helps us understand how social and cooperative behaviors evolve. Altruistic behaviors, which seem to diminish an individual's reproductive output, actually enhance inclusive fitness when directed at close relatives. Hamilton's rule serves as the theoretical foundation for kin selection, leading to a broader understanding of evolutionary strategies beyond individual survival, especially in social species. Feel free to ask if you want me to explain a further topic. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Evolutionary game theory and evolutionarily stable strategies, S1. Detailed lecture. Evolutionary game theory is a framework for understanding the strategies and behaviors of individuals in an evolutionary context, where the fitness of individuals depends not only on their own actions but also on the actions of others. It draws from classical game theory, but applies it to biological systems and the evolution of traits in populations. The central idea behind evolutionary game theory is that behaviors or strategies are subject to natural selection. Some strategies increase reproductive success, while others reduce it. The theory can be used to model interactions between individuals in a population, such as cooperation, competition, defection, and altruism. An important concept within evolutionary game theory is the idea of an evolutionarily stable strategy, S. An S is a strategy that, if adopted by most members of a population, cannot be invaded by an alternative strategy. It maintains its position because it provides a higher fitness than other potential strategies, even when rare mutants attempt to introduce alternative behaviors. 2. Evolutionary stable strategies, ESS. The concept of an evolutionarily stable strategy, S, is fundamental in understanding evolutionary stability and cooperation in populations. An S ensures that natural selection will favor an individual's behavior or strategy over other potential strategies, and any mutant behavior will not be successful. An S is defined using two key conditions. Condition 1. If most individuals adopt strategy A, then an individual using strategy A will have higher fitness than an individual using strategy B when encountering A. Condition 2. If a population is entirely composed of strategy A and some individuals adopt strategy B, strategy A must still perform better against B. These conditions ensure that once a particular strategy becomes dominant in a population, it remains stable because deviating from it would lower an individual's fitness. 3. Types of strategies in evolutionary game theory. There are various types of strategies modeled in evolutionary game theory that reflect the interactions between individuals. A. Cooperation. Cooperation refers to the behavior where individuals work together for mutual benefit. The prisoner's dilemma is a common example of cooperation where individuals are better off cooperating rather than acting selfishly, but if everyone defects, they are worse off. Evolutionary stable strategies often include a mix of cooperation and defection. Kin selection. As seen before, individuals cooperate with relatives due to kinship. Cooperation enhances the fitness of genetically related individuals. Reciprocal altruism. Some individuals may cooperate with others under the expectation of receiving help in return in the future. B. Hawk-Dove game. The Hawk-Dove game models conflict behavior within a population where individuals adopt one of two strategies. Hawk always fights for resources and risks injury. Dove displays aggression but retreats if a fight ensues. In this game, the coexistence of hawks and doves is often in equilibrium, where the payoffs of engaging in fights and the costs associated with injury create stable proportions of each strategy in the population. See the prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma illustrates why two purely rational individuals may not cooperate, even though they would both be better off if they did. Each individual has two choices, cooperate or defect. The dilemma arises when both individuals defect, which leads to a worse outcome for both than if they had cooperated. Tit for tat strategy, a successful strategy in the prisoner's dilemma, where an individual cooperates in the first interaction and then replicates the opponent's previous move. This strategy helps foster cooperation in repeated scenarios. Deep betrayal games and evolution of selfishness in betrayal games. Strategies evolve when selfish or exploitative behavior can provide an advantage. The study of such games illustrates the evolutionary trajectory toward dominance of selfish or exploitative behaviors, despite cooperation being generally more beneficial in the long term. 4. Practice questions Q1 Gate 2021. In a population of hawks and doves, what would happen if the frequency of hawks increased too much? A. The population of hawks would be stable, and doves would increase. B. There would be an increase in conflict and injuries, resulting in a reduction in hawk fitness. C. Doves would completely outcompete hawks in the population. D. The population would reach a perfect equilibrium of hawks and doves. Answer. B. There would be an increase in conflict and injuries, resulting in a reduction in hawk fitness. Explanation. The Hawk-Dove game predicts that if hawks increase excessively in a population, their fitness decreases because of the high risk of injury while fighting for resources. This leads to the population favoring more doves, less aggressive strategy. Q2 Gate 2019. In the context of evolutionary game theory, which of the following statements is true about an evolutionarily stable strategy, S? A. An S can be invaded by an alternative strategy without any consequences. B and S is a strategy that cannot be dominated by any other strategy in the population. C. S strategies always depend on the size of the population. D. S refers only to cooperative strategies in game theory. Answer.